Well, thank you very much indeed, and I've got to say the honour is all mine, and I want to pay tribute to everybody who is involved in this campaign. This is a crucially important campaign because this is all about really defending freedom of speech, and we know that freedom of speech is under attack, and the greatest exponent, the greatest advocate for freedom of speech is Julian Assange, who's languishing in solitary confinement in Belmarsh prison. That is a stain on the British state. Britain used to pride itself on standing up for human rights. And here we have a situation where somebody who we should be venerating, who we should be celebrating, is being forced to endure solitary confinement, which is tantamount to torture. Torture taking place on British soil. This cannot be allowed to stand. And it's so important, therefore, that we stand in solidarity and demand Julian Assange's release, and that we do not take no for an answer. And I said it's an incredible privilege to be here, and it's a particular privilege to meet Julian's father. I can only imagine the strain and stress and trauma that he and his mother have been experiencing. So we have a moral duty, it seems to me, to fight on behalf of Julian Assange, whose only crime is to expose war crimes by the United States of America and the abuse of state power and the abuse of power across the piece, really. Why on earth anybody who's performed such a crucially important international public service should be languishing in solitary confinement in a high security in Great Britain? It's an absolute travesty, a tragedy, and an outrage.
Hear, hear.
And so it's so essential that we do whatever we can. I've written to the Home Secretary demanding really that really Britain honours its obligations and as John is saying, really releases Julian Assange forthwith. It was bad enough, wasn't it, that he was incarcerated in the first place for the relatively modest crime, if I can put it like that, misdemeanour of skipping bail, but we didn't know the reason why he did that. But to now be told that at the end of his sentence is going to remain in prison, we're behaving as some sort of tin pot dictatorship. That's why we absolutely have to stand up and fight this together. And so I urge all of us today to take this message forward and to bring more pressure on other parliamentarians. I know that the Shadow Home Secretary and indeed the Leader of the Opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, and Diane Abbott have made their support for Julian very clear when he was dragged from the Ecuadorian embassy. But I want to see this issue being raised more regularly on the floor of the House of Commons. I want to see the government being put under pressure. And where are the British journalists? Where is the free press in this country? Why aren't they defending one of their own? That's a very, very serious question. So look, there is a possibility, I know we're getting to discussing Brexit today, but there is a possibility that we might have an interim government and we might have Jeremy Corbyn going across the threshold of 10 Downing Street ahead of a general election, and hopefully he'll get over the threshold of 10 Downing Street for a more permanent tenure. But one of the most important duties, I think, would fall on Jeremy's shoulders should that eventuality arise, where in order to remove Boris Johnson to try to sort out the Brexit debacle, he shouldn't forget Julian Assange, and we should use that opportunity, and we should bring pressure to bear if there is a change in government to say, do the right thing and free Julian Assange.